This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about Shakespearian prisons, the oxymoronicness of elevated subway trains, and how women still throw their unmentionables at Tom Jones. All that and more as we watch Season 3, Episode 15 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran, one of your guides through this journey. Joining me every week, my sister, Sophia. What's up, Sophia?
Hey, Imran. I'm just sitting here writing some letters to my pen pal. And the last letter I got from her is super interesting. She's telling me how she has bars on her window. I guess she must live on the first floor of an apartment building in a dangerous neighborhood.
Wow, letters. I remember those. Well, let's just cut to the chase. We are at Season 3, Episode 15 of Perfect Strangers, titled The Pen Pal. Now, Sophia, what is a pen pal?
A pen pal, for our young listeners, was something we did a long time ago where you write letters back and send them to a stranger. Often it would be like in school, you would get it set up like kids in another state or in another country, and you don't know this person, but you get to know each other by sending each other's letters.
Correspondence. And letters is the thing where you write words on a piece of paper and
pen,
you fold it up.
Or maybe on a computer now, but
it requires a stamp, and then you have to physically walk to a mailbox and put it in.
Yes.
And then somebody will physically take your letter and walk it over to the person.
And the whole process takes weeks and weeks.
It sounds super efficient when you actually talk out what the mail is, right? It's kind of weird. But are people still writing letters? Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. Postcards. Maybe.
Postcards are great because you just write, hi, having a great time. Done. You still got to find a stamp and find a thing to put it in. Yes. Just send me an email from your phone. It's a lot easier. Anyways, TV Guide's description for this episode, listener, reads, Balky invites parolee Vince Lucas, the racketeer they sent to jail with their testimony, to stay at the apartment. But Larry fears for their lives after overhearing what Vince has in store for them. We got a returning character of Vince Lucas.
Interesting. This episode starring, as always, our favorites Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker. And we've got a little bit of a guest cast, an opening scene with Harriet Winslow, played by Jo Marie Payton France, and the lovely Belita Marino playing Lydia Markham. And then, of course, there's Vince Lucas himself, played by John Del Regno? I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Just pronounce all the words as they're there. John Del Regno, returning. And this episode originally airing January 27th, 1988.
Oh boy. Okay, let's get into it. Act 1. We open at the Chicago Chronicle, where we know that Larry and Balky work in the basement. Everybody's there. It's just about quitting time. And Larry and Harriet are getting ready to leave for the day. And Harriet here gets the opening joke. Larry asks her if she has any big plans for the night. And Harriet says, well, I was thinking about going to a nice restaurant, having a romantic dinner, maybe dancing till dawn. But I guess I should go home to my husband.
Oh,
classic
snap.
Misdirect, setup and punchline. Love it.
I'm telling Carl Winslow. You can't treat Carl Winslow like that. Come on.
Who else would she be having a romantic dinner and dancing with? And then Lydia Markham enters. And as we know, Lydia is the award-winning national syndicated advice columnist at the Chicago Chronicle. And she enters from like the inside of the building, the right side, and walks over to them. She's like, oh, I didn't realize it was already the end of the day. I started reading some of my old advice columns and I just lost track of time.
Oh.
And then she looks at him. She's like, damn, I'm good.
And then we get a thing that will occur often, I believe, and it's Harriet and Lydia having a friendly argument and going at each other because Harriet accuses Lydia of meeting her deadline by using other people's work in her columns. And Lydia goes, once in 5 years, I asked you for a tiny bit of advice to fill out a column. But, Larry's caught in the middle. And he's like, ladies, but it's way too late for ladies, Larry. Harriet goes, fill out a column. You took my tiny bit of advice and turned it into a 5-part series. And then Larry luckily gets his out as the phone rings. And he's like, I'll get it. And runs over to answer the phone.
This was like a weird, I didn't really understand why this argument was in there except to set up, like really underscore the fact that Lydia gives advice for a living. Otherwise, the rest of this argument I felt like was a bit extraneous. But anyway, Lydia says, and we find out some things about Lydia. She says, Harriet, I may be neurotic, I may be panic prone, and yes, I admit I have a fear of polyester, but I am not a thief.
That's odd. She's afraid of polyester.
And then Harriet's like, okay, fine, you're not. You're just out of your mind. Oh, and maybe this is why this argument is here, to set up the next line. Larry hangs up the phone in the background, and then he tells them, I can't believe this is happening. And Lydia's like, it's okay. We're just having a friendly fight. We do this all the time.
She's like, lighten up, Larry. But Larry tells them that was the DA's office calling him on the phone to tell him Vince Lucas has been paroled. And he explains to them Vince is a very dangerous criminal. He says, about a year ago, Balky and I were supposed to be witnesses against him. On the day of the trial, Vince called me over to correct any misunderstandings Balky and I might have had about testifying. And then it crossfades into like a flashback back into, so we saw Vince Lucas originally season 2, an episode called Can I Get a Witness?
Yeah.
And that is the episode where we all saw them bravely testify against Vince and send him away. So we're now flashbacking to that episode, right?
And over the whole flashback is this like, remember that like spacey music that we would hear on like the Brady Bunch sometimes?
Oh, yeah.
It's like this very distinct like flashbacky outer spacey type of
something weird is going to happen.
Music
something weird's
that
going on.
used to be in sitcoms back then.
That's so funny.
It felt very nostalgic to me when I heard that music this time. Yeah.
It is very familiar. And they cross back to, so they're in the court now from that episode. And Vince motions for Larry to come over. And Vince makes him a very threatening promise. He goes, if you and your pal testify, I'll get you. Even if I go to jail, I'll get you. No matter how long it takes, I'll get you. Someday you'll be in a dark place. You'll sense someone behind you. You'll feel a twinge of pain. Things will start getting gray. You'll have an out-of-body experience permanently. He goes, now you understand what I'm saying? And Larry meekly just goes, you'll get me. As the flashback ends.
And with music. Now, we are professionals, aren't we, Imran?
What's weird is...
We are professionals, which means we did some research on this flashback scene.
Because if you go back and watch the episode from season 2, Can I Get a Witness? This scene is not in the episode. In fact, how things happen, Vince is threatening of Larry so that they don't testify, doesn't even happen this way. And at this moment, it's very strange. What actually happens?
Well, in the episode in season 2, Vince actually goes to their apartment the day before the trial and threatens them at the apartment. And during the trial, some other stuff happens. So it was a little bit of a different sequence. But being the professionals that we are, we went through each episode frame by frame
to
compare. Because the question we were wondering is, did they recreate this scene special for this season 3 episode? Or was it perhaps something they had filmed and didn't use back in season 2? So we put it side to side. There's in the current episode in season 3, there's one extra that you can see in the back. And lo and behold, we put some screenshots side by side. He is there in the season 2 episode. The costumes are the same, but that could have been easy to recreate. But our conclusion is that this was extra footage back from season 2, filmed in season 2 that they brought back. And maybe they had changed the script and maybe they had moved the threat to the night before. Who knows what happened?
Absolutely. No, the script changes a lot on these shows. And there's no way. This was like a 20, 30-second flashback. There's no way if they struck that set that they're rebuilding the whole thing, getting everybody back.
Maybe that extra was like a guy that worked on the show or something, and he was just around, and they put him in the same seat. But he's sitting in the same spot exactly.
No.
And Larry and Vince are wearing the same clothes.
On the one hand, clever repurposing of old footage we've never seen. On the other hand, it didn't even happen like that in the episode, right. So whatever. I don't know.
Again, what we say all the time about this stuff is that this was the 80s, yes, and there was no way to go back and watch that episode the way we just did to check these scenes. There was no way to put it side by side unless you worked in the TV industry. For the average viewer, unless you were like already a diehard fan and were like sitting at home video recording every episode.
So they probably figured, and you know what? They did it well enough to be remember. Like, I would have been like, you know what? That might have been in that episode. I don't know. Sure. I don't know.
People did not remember these details.
It's a good fake out.
And people were not binge watching the shows the way we do now.
We busted you, perfect strangers.
That's the whole point of this podcast. Okay, so anyway, the flashback ends and we're back to Larry talking to Harriet and Lydia in the basement of the Chronicle, and he tells them that, of course, they did testify and Vince was sent to prison and now he's out. And Larry is now panicked and he's afraid, frightened, legitimately, as he should be. And he asks Lydia, who is an advice columnist, for advice.
She's
That's
right there.
her job.
Good move.
And he says, Lydia, what should I do? And Lydia is like, she can't believe what she's hearing. She says, what should you do? A convicted felon who has vowed to seek revenge upon you was paroled today and you don't know what to do? Get the hell out of town, Larry.
Larry.
And Larry's like, oh, I have to warn Balky, but none of them have seen him. They don't know where he is. And Lydia's like, oh my God, Vince has got Balky. Poor little guy. He didn't even have a chance. She already like jumped to the ultimate conclusion. And Harriet, just always composed, always the cool one, says to Larry, you go and find Balky and I'll stay here and slap her.
She's hysterical.
Yeah. So Larry heads out toward the parking garage, and you hear him say, I've got to find Balky before Vince does. And yeah, this line.
Did you notice this line?
I did
Was
notice
there something weird about this line?
It's clearly like overdubbed. You don't see his mouth. He's like running out, and you can tell. Again, this was in the 80s. I don't know if the like TV technology wasn't that good, but the quality of that line is very different.
It's clear, and you can clearly see he's not moving his lips. So one of two reasons this happened. The show thought the people wouldn't get what Larry's motivation is. But also, if you think about it, it's kind of like we're hearing his thoughts. Like it's his inner monologue.
I don't think it's his inner monologue. I think it was just bad audio technology.
It was bad.
From the
it's
80s.
Called ADR. Yeah. It's called ADR. It's bad ADR.
And I think there's actually another spot in this episode where that happens. We'll
really? Because you didn't really need that line. We understand where you're going.
Got to find Balky before Vince does.
Of course
it's clearly an overdubbed
I was
line.
like, wait a minute, that's a little sloppy. Anyways, back at the apartment, we have a song alert. Oh, get ready.
It's such a good one.
This is a good one.
It's such a good one.
Balky is preparing dinner in the kitchen while singing and gyrating and bopping. And two, It's Not Unusual by Tom Jones.
And he's not singing in a Meposian accent either.
He's doing Tom Jones's kind of voice.
Actual singing, and it's beautiful, actually.
And there's something about the song. Everybody loves this song. This song has huge fans. We'll talk about Tom Jones in a second. But anyways, there's a knock at the door, and Balky walks over the door. He's still singing and dancing, and then he stops to do a little hip gyration to the music in the middle.
It's like a whole body wave.
It's a whole body wiggle.
Yeah.
Before he gets to the door, he opens the door, and Vince Lucas is standing there. Now, hold on. There's a couple of things to mention. Tom Jones, the effect Tom Jones has on women of all ages in his concerts. I don't know if you've heard stories about.
No, but I've also never been to a Tom Jones concert.
So women will throw certain items of clothing at him. That's what he's right.
Unmentionables.
Yes, and he's older now, and he still drives him crazy, and it's not unusual. So also it reminded me of Carlton doing the Carlton dance in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I believe one time he was doing
song?
it. Yes, was because
it's
Carlton
not unusual
was a big Tom Jones fan.
Everyone.
Also, yes.
It's not unusual. And in this scene, Balky sings like quite a bit of it. He's doing
he's
verses.
doing a good job.
Yeah.
He could do a good Elvis too. I think he's done Elvis, right? So it's kind of like that same kind of swagger. And then the most noticeable thing out of this, and it continues throughout the episode, is in the audience, there is this hysterical, high-pitched, I think it's a female.
Do we have an audio clip of that?
Let me pull this up and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
And it continues through the whole scene. And apparently, the same woman's laugh can be heard during Bronson Pinchot's Saturday Night Live appearance. Also in the 80s. This lady has not been identified. Here, let's see if we can catch her.
Maybe she's out there listening to our podcast right now.
Not unusual to be loved by anyone.
There it is.
Not unusual to have fun with anyone. If you ever want to be loved by anyone, it's not unusual to find that I'm in love with you. Whoa, 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 whoa,
whoa. She's like wailing.
I thought first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, the audience is just loving Bronson doing Tom Jones because everybody loves when Tom Jones. So, but this lady, you'll hear her throughout the episode. It's just you can't not notice it.
Okay, so back in the scene, Balky has just opened the door, and Vince Lucas is standing in the hallway, and he's looking at him menacingly. And you hear the audience gasp, and there's like tension. And
this is not good.
Vince and Balky are just staring at each other. And then Vince says in his like gruffy criminal voice, "Balky Bartakamus, I've been looking forward to this day." And then Balky stares at him. And then his face kind of goes into a smile, and he goes, "Me too." And then they both go, "Hey!"
They have their arms out, and they hug each other.
They hug each other, and they're laughing and smiling.
I love that. That was a fantastic reversal of you didn't know what was going to happen, and now everybody's smiling at friends, and you're like, whoa, different dynamic. This is going to be great.
So then Balky asks him how prison was, and he says, well, Joliet was nice, but it was no Leavenworth, and we're going to come back to that line in a minute. Let's finish this scene first. And then Balky starts helping him bring his things in, and we find out that Vince is actually going to be staying with them because Balky says, "Let me get you settled. I've got everything you need all laid out for you. I've got sheepskin in case you get cold, and a brand new Masters of the Universe toothbrush. And
a He-Man toothbrush.
And the shower cap is complimentary."
Oh, that's nice of him.
And Vince is just like thrilled, and he's like, thanks him. He's like, "I can't believe you're doing this for me." Balky does a Balky thing. He goes, "Oh, go on with you," and pushes him a little too hard, like shoves him.
Vince got mad for a second.
Yeah.
Like he was going to come back at him. Like, what are you doing? That's great.
So then Balky ushers Vince and his things into Balky's bedroom. He says, "I know it's been a long trip down from up the river."
That's great too.
A little mangling of the prison
river.
idiom.
Yeah.
And he says, dinner's going to be ready in a little bit. And he puts Vince in his bedroom. He closes the door. Now, I want to go back to this line. Balky asked Vince how was prison, and Vince said, "Well, Joliet was nice, but it was no Leavenworth."
It was no Leavenworth.
A couple of things to point out here. These are Joliet is a very Illinois reference. Joliet is about 30 miles. Is a city. Sorry, it's about 20. Somewhere 20 to 30 miles outside of Chicago. And there used to be a big prison there called the Joliet Correctional Center, also known as Illinois State Penitentiary, or just Joliet Prison for short. It was a big prison. It doesn't exist anymore. It closed actually in 2002, but it's been featured in a lot of movies. It was in the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, it's very famous.
It was in exterior shots of it were used in James Cagney films. And and it was also the first season of Prison Break
they shot it at Joliet Prison, which is crazy. I also heard that they were doing like haunted house things during the Halloween at Joliet Prison.
They do that at a lot lot of penitentiaries. I've been to one, not in Illinois. But
I would do that.
So Prison Break was what year? Was Joliet Prison? Was it after 2002?
I think it was right around that time.
Okay,
it was early 2000s.
Just after it closed as a prison. Now. So that's Joliet, and the line he says was Joliet was nice, but it was no Leavenworth. Leavenworth is a federal prison. It's a medium security U.S. penitentiary. It's still around. It's in Leavenworth, Kansas.
Oh, it's in Kansas. Okay.
So, but what is this line? What is Leavenworth known for? Do you know?
It's just another famous prison.
Just a big federal penitentiary.
Yeah, another federal.
So Joliet was nice. So we get this local reference. Now, I want to say one more thing about Joliet, a little bit of Illinois trivia.
Yeah.
Any listeners out there who are from the Chicago area, you might know this. Joliet is about 9 miles away from another town called Romeoville. Romeoville, Illinois, which was originally called Romeo, and Joliet was originally called Juliet.
Get out of the city!
They were twin and rival communities that were settled around the same time in the 1830s.
Was Juliet there first, or was Romeo there first?
That's in the weeds. We're going to have to research that. It goes back to the 1830s, and then in 1845, the city of Juliet's name was changed to Joliet in honor of the famous explorer Louis Joliet. I've never heard of him, but apparently he was famous. And then when that happened, the town of Romeo was like, well, this romance is over. We're going to become Romeoville.
And they've never made up.
And they never made up. But Joliet and Romeoville, I heard about this, when I was a kid at some point, and every time I hear either Joliet or Romeoville mentioned, I think of this Romeo and Juliet thing. Just a little bit of Illinois
Illinois Shakespeare, and it's Shakespeare tied to the show because I don't know. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So a little aside.
Anyway, so Balky has just helped Vince into the bedroom with his stuff, and this was just brilliantly comedically timed. The minute they're inside, Larry bursts into the apartment looking for Balky, right? He's looking for Balky. He's frantic. He sees him. He goes, "Oh, I'm glad you're alive." And Balky's like, "Well, I'm glad to be alive."
Balky's like in this chipper, happy mood.
Yes, just all calm as Larry is freaking out, and he closes the door, and he changes the front door, and he grabs a chair and does the thing where you put the chair under the doorknob. I don't know if that ever works, but that's the thing you do.
In TV, to
jam a door. Yeah, but like you could just
Have you ever tried that?
No, I don't know why that would work, but that's the thing to do.
Does anyone ever do that in real life?
No, because it doesn't work. It just looks good on TV. And Balky's trying to calm Larry down and trying to tell him, look, if you just stand still for a second, I have a surprise for you. And Larry's like, I have something important to tell you. And Balky's like, can it wait? I have a surprise for you. And Larry's like, you can surprise me later. And Balky's like, well, I want to tell you my surprise now. And they both go, Balky, close it. And then Larry just puts his hand over Balky's mouth and goes, I found out Vince Lucas was paroled today. As he runs over to the couch, and this is hilarious.
So funny.
He goes, Balky, help me move the sofa in front of the door. Help me. And as Larry puts his head down, starts to drag the couch over to the side, Balky just casually leans with his other hand, leaning in a 45-degree angle, pushing back. And the couch is not moving anywhere because they're both pushing it in the center. The couch is not moving,
but the way Larry is positioned in this scene, like, his head is down and one hand is outstretched and the other one is pushed. Like, he looked like a Muppet.
Well, you don't see his body, you just see his head.
Arms, like those
arms.
lanky, like Kermit arms. That's what it looked like to me. I immediately was like, oh, that's a very Muppety comical action right there.
And then just Balky leaning with his hand on his hip is so funny. And while this is happening, Larry's head is still down. Vince walks out of Balky's bedroom wearing Larry's blue bathrobe and pajamas, I believe. And Larry doesn't see him, and Vince goes, hey, Appleton. And then Larry's just in shock and slowly looks up and goes, Vince goes, how's it going? And rushes over and
Larry's
throws
like,
his arm and grabs him. And Larry screams when he grabs him. And Balky goes, surprise. And oh my God, this next bit, Larry's face is hilarious.
Oh my gosh, he is truly in terror. And like Vince is like bear hugging him. He is like frozen. His face is in terror. Balky's yelling, surprise. And Vince says, Larry, I want to thank you. It's not everybody who would let an ex-con move in with them.
Oh, what? That's what's happening? Okay.
And Balky's like, are you kidding? We're going to be the envy of the neighborhood. Cousin, we really stepped in something good this time.
This is a good thing for Balky, while Larry is just bug-eyed and frozen.
So bug-eyed. I thought his eyes were going to pop out of his head in this episode.
I don't know how he didn't hurt himself. And Balky notices, he goes, Cousin Larry's so excited the cat ate his tongue. That's a screwed up reference.
The cat ate his tongue. He means the cat got his tongue.
Got ate, same thing. What is the cat going to do with it when he gets your tongue anyways? He's probably going to eat it. And Balky's like, okay, we're going to have dinner pretty soon. And then this is so funny. He takes Vince's hands and turns them up and looks at him. He goes, let me see, like a proud parrot. He goes, okay, we know where we have to go. And it motions for him to go to the bathroom.
Such a random line right
to
there.
wash his hands.
Weird.
And Vince is like, oh, yeah, right, we'll talk later. And he turns to Larry and goes, gee, it's good to see you. And then goes to the bathroom.
Do people not wash their hands in prison? I don't know. So Vince leaves to go wash his hands or whatever. And Larry is in shock. He's just standing there. He's staring at Balky. He's has no idea what to make to this whole thing. And this is so funny. Here we have a bit of physical comedy.
Yes.
Physical comedy alert. Larry says, Balky, could I talk to you privately? And Balky says, well, of course you can. And Larry grabs Balky by the back of the shirt and hauls him across the room, flings him over the kitchen counter, and then he jumps over the counter himself, and they both land on the floor inside the kitchen. Now, let's pause there for a minute. We've all seen this counter. It's like a half counter.
It's pretty tall.
There's no reason to go over the counter.
You could have walked around it, but it's funnier to get thrown
over. It was totally
over.
Unnecessary to go over the counter. You could go around it, but purely for physical comedy, it was hilarious. He leaps over the counter.
That's the second time he climbed over the counter last episode. Remember when Sunday, when he's describing the Sunday, he likes flying over this counter, and now they're both on the floor, hiding behind the counter.
In the kitchen. Yeah. Jumps over. Yeah, they're both on the floor. Balky is sitting with his back against the counter, right? Larry, puts his hand on Balky's face to, pop up and peer over the counter to make sure Vince isn't back out in the living room again. And Balky's he comes back. They're having this huddled little talk in the kitchen. He goes, what is he doing here? And Balky goes, more to the point, what am I doing here?
Meaning on the floor.
And Larry says they're hiding until they figure out what Vince is doing there. And Balky's like, duh, I invited him. And he accepted. Isn't that nice?
And now Larry starts to physically abuse Balky as he just pushes Balky's head back against the wall and thumps in the back of his head. You could give him a concussion, Larry Appleton. Yeah. What are you doing? Anyways, he thumps his head against the counter. And he goes, are you crazy? And Balky's like, you seem upset. And then Larry bangs Balky's head against the wall again.
He pushes it against the wall, yeah.
He goes, thump. Ow. He goes, yes, I'm upset. There's a killer in the bathroom. And then Larry finally sits back and relaxes with his back against the stove and then casually reaches over and just lifts Balky's chin so his head will hit the wall a third time. Just being mean. And then this time, though, Balky's like, I'm going to do the same to you. And Balky reaches over and lifts Larry's head and then it goes bump and Balky's all happy.
And this scene, of course, any truly dedicated fan knows that there are bloopers of this scene circulating on YouTube. It's very, very funny. They lose their composure. They start cracking
each other's heads in the back of the wall.
It's very funny. So anyway, Balky tells Larry that Vince is not a killer. He was a thief and a loan shark, and there was the occasional assault with a deadly weapon, but he was not a killer.
All right, that's fair.
And Larry cannot believe what he's hearing. He's like, okay, fine, what the heck? Give him my room. And then Balky takes it literally. He's like, well, I didn't think it would be fair without asking first.
That's called sarcasm, though.
Yes, Balky doesn't get it.
And then we learn some amazing things about the incarceration and rehabilitation program for prisoners on Mypos, and they're startlingly progressive as Balky goes, cousin. On Mypos, when a criminal is released from prison, he is given to one of the nice families on the island so that he can learn to be a good person, and for the family that gets him, it is a great honor. And then he goes, and I don't want to brag, but my family, we had 2 arsonists stay with us. It's just such a funny line.
Oh, boy.
And Larry, of course, whenever there's something about Mypos, Larry's going to come back with, this is America, Balky. We don't take convicts into our homes. And Balky's like, oh, poor cousin. And then he mangles this. He goes, now I understand what got your dandruff up. That's one line that's supposed to be. So
that is got your dander up, which is the common saying, which means to cause someone to become angry
And then he goes, let me relieve you of your mind, which is also a hilarious saying.
And I think this comes from like relieve you of your burden. And I think it's doubly funny because he's implying that Larry's mind is his own burden.
Or let me relax your mind or, relieve you. It just reminds me of like when you relieve yourself. He's relieving himself of his mind. So anyways, Balky goes, Vince is a changed person. He studied photography in prison.
And then Larry goes, photography?
Like, photography? Yes, as they get up to his feet.
That was so funny to me.
Yes, he says it the same. Photography? And he tells him that Vince has got a job all lined up. He's going to be a photographer's assistant. But the job don't start for 2 days, and he don't have a place to stay for those 2 days.
And Larry's like, what? He still can't believe what he's hearing. He says, how do you know all this? And Balky again is like, duh. I've been writing him ever since he went to jail. And then there's a beat and he goes, haven't you?
Oh.
And Larry's like, no. Is that part of this Meepos thing too? You can't. And Balky's like, explains to Larry that you can't just send a person to jail and forget about him. And he says, believe me, Vince is not here to kill us. He just wants a new fleece on life.
Okay, that's great. A new lease on life, but then sheep and fleece.
Yes.
That's what they say on Meepos.
That's what the criminals on Meepos get after prison.
They want a new
fleece on life.
They get some wool when they get out. Yeah.
And he says, we have to help him. And Larry is still like, cannot believe it. He's like, you really trust this guy? And then Balky says, illicitly.
Okay, that's another screw up. I love these. There's
which is really funny, but like, what was that supposed to be?
Implicitly is what you're supposed to say. I implicitly trust him, but he illicitly trusts him, which is a slightly different meaning. Right. Also funny.
And then Larry says, okay, it's just a couple of days. I guess I can go without sleep that long.
He's just going to stay up while it's there.
And Balky assures him like nothing's going to happen. And he says, after all, if we both ended up dead, I'd have to live with it for the rest of my life.
That's another great line. So many like Balky lines in a row at the end there. And that's the end of Act 1. Listener, if you are following along with us and you want to leave your comments, observations, fan theories on Perfect Strangers, join our Facebook group where you will meet other diehard fans who will dig into prison distances in Illinois like us for the sake of just looking it up. It's called Dance and Joy Podcast Facebook group. I post a thread there every week of the show we're recording, so you can leave your thoughts on that show and you can meet all the wonderful people in there. And man, these threads, again,
are getting long.
They're getting wild, and there's so much like diving into details and theories. It's so much fun to read.
We're building a little community in there.
Good job, everyone in the group.
Great job.
Act 2, sister.
Act 2. We are now on the next day, and we're back at the Chronicle. And Balky and Larry it's lunchtime. They're deciding where to go for lunch. And Balky tells Larry that Vince is going to join them for lunch and he's going to be there soon. And he calls him our VIP, very important prisoner. And then he does this whole like looking up with his hands open. Where do I come up with them silent thing, laughing at his own joke. And Larry doesn't want to go to lunch with Vince. So he changes his mind right away. And he says, oh, wait a minute. What am I thinking? I can't go to lunch today. And he says, today is a holiday and I'm supposed to fast. And
is he Muslim?
How come you eat breakfast? Oh, their faith's fast. He goes, how come you eat breakfast? He says, and then Larry, quick on his feet, says, because the actual holiday doesn't kick in until afternoon. And oh, look at that. It's 5 minutes after. Maybe next time.
Balky's cut out. He goes, wait a minute. He goes, cousin, I can read you like a scroll. And
that one actually makes sense.
This one actually makes sense, finally, as you can read a scroll. You unscroll it, you read it. He goes, you're not fasting, you're avoiding Vince. You still don't trust him. Goes, cousin, the way you're acting, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the last prisoner we ever get. It's just a great line. And Larry's like, it's hard to trust a man who might kill me in my sleep. And Balky tells him he's not even trying. And he doesn't think Larry really believes Vince is a changed man. And then Larry goes, bingo. And then Balky goes, don't change the subject. Which is also really funny.
Which is funny because Larry didn't change the subject.
No. What does he think? He's trying to start a round of bingo,
Maybe,
the song?
Yeah.
And Larry repeats, like, Balky, the man tried to kill me. And Balky goes, well, he threatened me too, but I trust him. And Larry's like, how do you do that? Like, sincerely asking, impressed that Balky could do this. And Balky's like, it's easy. Just you trust him a little bit, then you trust him a little bit more, then you trust him a lot more. And he tells Larry he can start small. He can loan him his car.
Oh, boy.
And Larry's like, I don't know.
So just then Vince enters the basement from the garage side, and he's like full of energy and joy and life. And he says, hi, guys. Boy, life is so good. They let me in the building without a strip search.
It's a luxury. Something he's not used to.
Yeah, he's like fresh from jail, right?
The pokey. Yeah.
So he is ready to go to lunch, and Larry agrees reluctantly to go with, and he even agrees to he tosses Vince the keys, and he says, why don't you drive?
Oh, there's a little bit of trust there.
He's trying. Balky got to him. He's trying. And Vince is touched by this. He's like, oh, thanks. It'll be good to drive again. And then as they're walking toward the garage, Vince goes, hey, you guys ever see the car chase from the French Connection? And then Larry just looks panicked and nervous. Then the scene ends. Now, what is this reference to the French Connection?
I wonder how many people now, did you know what this was?
I did not. I mean, I know of the film, but I don't know about the car chase. Yeah.
So it's a French Connection crime thriller from 1971 starring Gene Hackman, Fernando Rey, and Roy Scheider. It is a great movie. It's always on the top list of greatest movies of all time. And it is famous for its really harrowing and exciting and dangerous looking car chase scene, which involved a car in the streets. I think it was New York, or I forgot what city it's in, but it's a city that has an elevated subway, right? So it's a car chase that's chasing an elevated subway train.
Elevated train. I think elevated subway is a bit of an oxymoron.
But those elevated trains sometimes go down and they're the subway train. It's the same thing. In Chicago, the elevated train eventually goes into it's the subway. It's the elevated subway train.
Subway.
It's both things at once.
Mayhaps, yes.
Semantics, whatever. It's an amazing car chase scene, and it was actually dangerous to film. They didn't really have permits, and they kind of just guerrilla style filmed it and got away with it. But it's copied. It's a lot of homages have been done to this car chase scene in movies for years since it came out. Check it. You should just YouTube the car chase scene. Okay. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I will do. We cut to the next scene. It's later that night in the apartment, and it's late at night, and we see Balky asleep on the sofa in the living room. And I guess that they got rid of that pull-out couch a long time ago because he's just sleeping on it as a sofa.
Oh, yeah. Those things are hard to move. You just throw them out. They're just annoying.
So Balky's asleep in the dark living room, and then we see Vince on the phone in the living room at the kitchen counter.
That's not shady.
With his future employer, Mr. Denegri, and he's saying some stuff to he's asking his boss, his future boss, for some photography advice. And we hear him tell his boss that he wants to surprise Balky and Larry with a framed picture of them because he as a thank you for letting him stay there. Which is very nice and kind of a nice gesture.
It's a great idea.
And just as he's saying these things, Larry stumbles out of his bedroom into the hallway just in time to overhear Vince say some things without the proper context because he didn't hear this first part of the conversation. Meanwhile, Balky's sleeping through all of this, doesn't hear any of it, even though he's right there in the living room.
Classic sitcom misunderstanding setup.
Right. So just as Larry comes out, he hears Vince say, but the problem is every time I try to get a shot off, this one guy, Larry's watching me. Well, I thought about shooting them in their sleep, but I really wanted their eyes to be open.
Yikes.
And then Larry we see him in the hallway getting more and more bug-eyed and panicked and shocked. And Vince goes on, yeah, you're probably right. It won't be much of a surprise, but it'll get the job done. I'll just sit them down tomorrow morning and shoot them both. Thanks, boss. I'll see you later.
Yeah, that sounds bad if you just heard that part.
Right. Yeah. He's talking about shooting them. So Larry, of course, is in the living room, in the hallway, freaking out. Balky somehow slept through this whole thing. He's
a heavy sleeper. Yes,
he's right there in the living room. It's a classic sitcom-like sound barrier.
Yeah. He's over there, so he can't hear him. Yeah.
But Larry's even further over there, and he does.
Yeah, so how come Larry hear him? And yeah, good point.
Because Balky's sleeping, of course.
Oh, right.
So Vince hangs up the phone, and then Larry thinks he's gonna see him in the hallway, so he runs to hide in this little alcove thing at the back of the hallway.
I did not know there was a space there. What is this place?
Either. It's like a
Behind
whole
Balky's bedroom.
Another turn in the hallway.
Why didn't he go? I thought he didn't go into his bedroom because Vince would have seen the door close or hear it, and so he just cuts left. And I was like,
he cuts
what's
left
over
into
there?
another alcove or mini hallway or something. Who knows?
I never knew there was a thing back there.
And Vince goes back into Balky's room, closes the door, and as soon as Vince is in the bedroom, Larry runs back out to the living room, turns on the light, and again, very comically, leaps over the back of the sofa
right
onto Balky. Like he's just on top of him in his face, trying to wake him up, and he's like, "We've got to get out of here. Vince is going to kill us." And Balky just thinks that Larry had a bad dream. He tells him to go back to bed, and he rolls over and which pushes Larry onto the floor. So now Larry's on the floor and Balky's on the sofa, and Larry grabs Balky's collar from the floor and looks up at him. This is also very comic looking physicality. Looks up at him, pulls him closer, and he says, "I'm serious. Vince is going to shoot us first thing in the morning." And Balky goes, "Are you sure? He told me himself he's not a morning person," which is such a good line. Again, this episode has a lot of good lines. And he rolls over again to sleep. And then Larry gets back up, sits on the arm of the couch, and then he grabs Balky's head by the hair. And he's still panicked. And he's like, "Look, I believe in what you're trying to do with Vince, but it's not working." And he tells him that he just heard Vince on the phone planning their murders. And Balky, of course, still doesn't believe. He says, "Are you sure this never happened on Meepos? Our two arsonists were perfect guests." Of course, we couldn't barbecue while they were there.
I love that line. That's pretty funny. Can't barbecue while the arsonists are there. And then Larry goes and he sits on the side of the couch, and Balky pulls Balky into a sitting position. And he goes, "Balky, I'm sure the criminals on Meepos are a damn fine bunch of people. Unfortunately, Vince is a lemon." And then Balky goes, "No, I think he's a Pisces," which is a great line. And Larry's like, "I mean, he hasn't reformed." And Balky's like, "He's been so nice to us." Balky is confused. And Larry's like, "Lots of killers are nice. Lizzie Borden was homecoming queen." I didn't even, that's a reference right there. You know, Lizzie Borden with the X. It's a whole nursery rhyme.
No.
Oh, you don't know the Lizzie Borden?
No.
It's famous in horror circles.
Axe murdered her father and stepmother in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. That's how the lyric goes. So that is the famous, it was weird. There was a nursery rhyme for
it's from a true story. She was an American woman, tried and acquitted in 1892. Yeah.
Listen, I'm sure there's a million true crime podcast episodes you can listen to about Lizzie Borden.
And no one else was charged in the murders. Interesting.
And she got a nursery rhyme out of it. So. But right then, Vince comes out of Balky's bedroom and goes and he sits on the little armchair opposite the couch. And he goes, "Hi, you guys." And then Balky's like, "Oh, Vince, you're up." And Vince is like, "Yeah, I've been up for a while. I couldn't sleep. I had a nightmare, the same one I've had ever since I went to prison." And Larry's just sitting there trying to not cause trouble. He's like, "Well, we all have had bad dreams." And then he goes, "Why don't we just turn in and think happy thoughts?" But then Vince continues about his dream. He goes, "You know, it's a funny thing, but you two are in my dream." And Balky goes,
"Get out of the city!"
"We were in your dream?" And you hear that high-pitched laughter lady here again, right there. And then Vince goes, "Yes, it's just the three of us in this room with no doors, just like solitary, except I don't have the straitjacket on." And Larry gets a little more frightened. Larry's eyes get wide and he's frightened, and he tells Vince, he asks him, he goes, "Did you ever have the dream where you couldn't run?" And then Vince continues. He goes, "But the dreams always happen the same way. I talk real nice to you, tell you a few jokes. Then when we're laughing and having fun, I grab you. Then with my bare hands, I squeeze your necks tighter and tighter. feeling the bones crack under my thumbs, feeling the life drain from your pathetic little bodies. And he starts getting
really into it. Yeah.
And then he looks up and he goes, oh, sorry. And then he goes, did you ever have a nightmare that was so real that you felt you were living it? They asked the cousins, and Balky and Larry are just in shock now.
Larry's eyes are so buggy, and Balky's just like messed up hair, furrowed brow.
And all they can do is nod yes, because they just saw Vince freak out and pantomime him killing them.
Yes.
Which is a little
nod
funny.
In unison, totally slowly. And then, this is really funny. Then it's quiet, and Larry just goes, well,
awkward silence.
And then he turns his head slightly, and then he goes, well. And then he turns to Balky, and his eyes are bigger than ever, and then he goes, well.
3 wells is so funny.
3 wells, like little yelps. And he says, it's been fun reminiscing like this, but I think I'll turn in. He's trying to get out of there, man.
Yeah.
And he starts to get up, but then Vince stands up as well, and he goes, before you go, Larry. And he goes, I got something I was going to wait until the morning to do, but since we're all up, I might as well do it now. I'll be right back.
Oh, here we go.
Larry's like, oh, no, he's going to kill us now. And Vince goes back to Balky's bedroom, and Larry's like, whoa, we'll be right here. And as soon as Vince is gone, Larry and Balky jump up. They race to the front door, and they're both trying to open it, but they fumble with the locks, and they pull it open, but the chain is still on, so they close the door again. They get the chain free, and just as they open the door, Vince starts coming out, so they quickly shut the door again, and they stand there with their backs against the door, all panicked. And Vince's like, what's going on? And he's holding this bag, and they're like, oh, nothing. And then Balky's like, we were just measuring ourselves. And he places his arm above Larry's head on the door.
I love Larry turns around to look and
he goes, oh, cousin, you've shut up an inch.
And then this is a weird place to end a scene, but this is where it fades to
commercial.
The end of the act or commercial.
Break. Yeah, it was a weird break.
Right in the middle of mid-scene. The action. And we will return to your regularly scheduled programming, listener. But first, if you like the show, if you've been enjoying the show and you're a fan of our recaps and deep dives, think about supporting the show. You can visit our website, danceofjoy.com/support, and buy us a coffee. It's a virtual tip jar. There's a little button there. And everything goes back into keeping the show going because we got to pay for like hosting costs and website and domain stuff. And it just keeps us fueled with caffeine to keep making this show every week.
We got to pay for our ad-free Hulu subscriptions.
Got to watch the show somehow. I don't even have the ad-free one. I still have the commercials. It's annoying. That's why we need you to buy us a coffee, listener, so I can get rid of the commercials.
Buy us a coffee so Imran can get rid of the commercials.
And thank you for everyone who has supported us.
Thank you.
And continues.
Okay. That brings us to Act 3. Again, this was a strange break in the act, but Act 3 opens and we're right back in that same scene, exactly where we left off. And Larry's like back against the door with Balky, and then he looks to Vince. He's like, what you got there, Vince? Vince is holding this bag. What you got there, Vince? And Vince is like, you'll see. I have to, a little note. I have to say, I think my favorite part of this podcast episode is both of us doing the Vince voice.
It's a lot of fun because he has fun doing it. Yes.
So Vince goes, you'll see. And he goes, now, this ain't going to hurt a bit. Stand over there. And he points over to the kitchen. And then Balky and Larry, in unison, walk very slowly. And they're like stuck to each other side by side toward the kitchen counter. And
like they're walking a plank or something. On a boat.
Very slowly. Like they're walking to a shooting. What do you call
the shooting line. The shooting line.
And this whole time, as they're walking toward the kitchen, Vince has his back to them, and the audience sees him pull out a camera flash and start putting together like a camera stuff from the bag.
Photography. Yes. Photography.
And he's got their back to them. And that's when Larry realizes that this is their chance to like rush him, attack him, subdue him, whatever. And he says, grab him. And he and Balky both grab Vince from the back. Larry grabs his arms. Balky grabs Vince from the back. Larry grabs his arms from the front. And they're all in this big like 3-person tussle. and this struggle, this commotion, and then a flash goes off in Larry's face, in his eyes. And Larry suddenly, like, overly dramatically goes backward, and he goes, "I've been hit!" And he falls into Balky's arms, and he goes, "Getting shot isn't as bad as I thought. Just a flash of light, and then your mind shuts down."
Balky's like, "Cousin, Vince don't have a gun. Vince has a flash gun, just like yours." And then he like leans Larry forward and tips him. He goes, "Look." And Larry sees the flash in Vince's hand. Yes, it is a flash. And Larry's like, very nice. Yes, he knows lighting equipment. But Vince is like, "But why would I have a gun? It would be a violation of my parole." And then Balky goes, "Well, cousin Larry thought that he heard you on the phone telling someone you were going to shoot us." And Vince is like, "I was talking to the guy I work for. I wanted to shoot a picture of you, frame it and give it to you as a way of paying you back for all the things you've done for me."
Aww.
This is very sweet. And now the cousins are super, super embarrassed because Larry's an idiot.
And then Larry tells Vince that he feels awful. He apologizes. "I don't know what to say." And Vince goes, "You guys thought I was going to shoot you?" And
I love this. Larry comes clean. He goes, "Balky didn't."
Usually he doesn't do that, but
usually he could have easily thrown Balky under the bus. Yeah. But he goes, "Balky didn't. He had faith in you. He trusted you right from the beginning. This is all my fault. Can you ever forgive me, Vince?" And Vince still is not over. "You thought I was going to shoot you with a gun?" And Larry goes, "Yes." And Vince just breaks out into laughter. He thinks this is the funniest thing that's ever happened to him. He goes, "This is great, a gun. I love it. I haven't laughed this much since the Newhart show. Not the new one, the old one with Suzanne Plachette. This is great." It's so funny. The Newhart reference.
And then he keeps laughing and he calms himself down a bit. And then he goes, "I might actually be able to sleep now. Good night, guys."
They relaxed him. That's
and he
good.
goes, I'll shoot that picture in the morning." And then he leaves them in the living room just processing. And he heads back to Balky's bedroom. And then just before he goes into the bedroom, Balky and Larry have their backs to him, and he goes, "Booga booga!"
And they jump.
Cracking up again. He goes, "You guys kill me."
He's getting such a kick out of it. They thought that he was going to kill Larry.
And this last line is so perfect. He says, "You guys kill me."
Yes. Well put, Vince.
Well put.
And now I think it's lesson time. There's no music, but there's some time has passed.
Yeah.
And Balky is sitting in the kitchen, on the kitchen counter, playing with toy frogs for some reason. I don't understand why. Is it just playful Balky behavior?
Must be some inside reference.
Something about frogs. It's very weird. Anyways, Larry comes in and goes, "Balky, guess what came in the mail today? Vince sent us the picture that he took of us," which is really nice. And Balky goes, "Isn't that nice? Just goes to show you what a little trust can do." And Larry goes, "Okay, I admit it. I was a little skeptical, but from now on, Larry Appleton will go out of his way. We'll bend over backwards. We'll walk that extra mile to help his fellow man back on the straight and narrow path." And then Balky goes, "Oh, cousin, that's nice." He goes, "I think Willie will be happy to hear that." And then Larry goes, "Willie? Willie who?" And Balky's like, "Oh, Willie, the weasel. He and Vince are roommates in prison, so I invited him to come and stay here when he gets out. The thing is, I'm not sure when he's coming because he said after he goes over the wall, then he has to lay low until the heat dies down. So I guess that means we'll see him early fall." And so Larry looks shocked.
Balky.
And Balky continues playing with the frogs as the credits roll. We're going to talk about that photo, too, in a second, the actual photo that he sends him. It's a very nice photo. But first, listener, we got some merch. We got some swag on our website, on our TeePublic shop, danceofjoypod.com/shop. You can get a really comfortable t-shirt to hang out in that has our Dance of Joy logo and promote the podcast. But there's lots of other things: face masks, mugs, travel mugs, pillows, tote bags, tank tops.
Bags.
Lots of fun stuff to check out. Send us a photo. We want to see you wearing Dance of Joy merch. It's very fun.
Very, very fun. Okay. Now, let's talk about this episode. I think it was super fun. As you said in the beginning, very creative way to use footage from an earlier season that had not been used.
And I like,
and I don't know, like, I would love to know from the writers and the creative team, like, what came first, the desire to use the footage and then the story around it, or did they write the story and then realize they had extra footage?
We can use this.
That
it might have been a happy accident
to know.
Yeah. I mean, why? And this is, we have a returning non-regular character coming back. Much like Gina. Remember in the first season, Gina came back. She had a baby.
Yes.
So they did that, and I love when they do that. And I thought we like we said, we love doing the Vince voice. John Del Regno is amazing at doing like the menacing
I wonder
side
if
of things
he had
and the
like
friendly side
if he
of
had
things.
to drink like a lot of tea, if his like throat hurt, his voice box hurt after the whole episode talking like that, or maybe that's just how he talks.
If you see him on the street, he would look like you wouldn't want to talk to him. He would look really scary. But
I love that in the 80s, they gave him, like in both episodes, it was a little different from the season 2 to season 3, but they gave him this like thick 80s mustache.
Yes, it's so great. It's very recognizable. But the turn of him being like a reformed guy and the whole thing about MePost and their program was fantastic.
Yeah.
And that photo is actually a promotional photo that the studio shot, and they mailed it to. It was a postcard mailer. It was sent to fans who wrote into the show.
Okay,
which is kind of cool.
That's fun. Which gives me an idea. We ought to send our fans a portrait of you and me,
posed like that, as like Vince took our photo.
A professional photograph of
photography
of you and me. Coming soon, listeners. Coming soon. If you write into us, you may just
coffee,
get.
We may send you a postcard of us. Or maybe an illustration. I could draw something. Some
kind of image of Imran and I.
That's fun. I like that. That's
fun. So we were, I did say that I was wondering which came first. Interesting question, as the same guy wrote both episodes.
Bob Keys wrote Can I Get a Witness and this episode. So I wonder if Bob was like, I'm going to bring Vince back.
Maybe it was just, writers have their pets, right? Like maybe this was just a great character he's always had.
And Bob would have known all the stuff that didn't make it in there that maybe got filmed to use. So he could have been like, oh, that was left on the floor. Let's use that. No, but I did. This episode was a ton of like great Balky-isms and catchphrases, and John Del Regno, a pleasure to watch.
Let's talk about Dimitri for a minute. Do we see Dimitri in this episode?
Yes, we do. He's on the bookcase, and he has a bandit's mask, like a domino mask over his eyes, and there's a halo over his head, meaning that, look, he may have made some mistakes, but Dimitri is also rehabilitated. Yes.
Very nice.
Now he's turned a new leaf, and he's trying to be good.
And speaking of Dimitri, we have a new entry, a new post from our favorite Instagram account, Dimitri Sheep. Actually, one of our favorites. We also have Balky Duds and now Larry Duds. They are all our favorites. Dimitri Sheep, for those who don't know yet, is an Instagram account run by the very one and only Dimitri the Stuffed Sheep.
By actual Dimitri Sheep.
And Dimitri is making a post for every episode as we go through and review them. We're about on the same timeline, and the posts are very clever and have hints and clues from the show. And it's like a puzzle looking at each one every week. So let's do it. Let's look at this episode's post. What do we see? We have Dimitri the Sheep.
Location? I was going to check the location.
Yeah, the location is marked as Witness Protection Program Headquarters.
Excellent. The WPPH.
Very nice. Very nice. And Dimitri's got some things in front of him on the table. First of all, there is a letter to Vince handwritten with a Sharpie. It says, Dear Vince, you want to come stay with us? I miss my arsonist friends from MePost. Love Dimitri. Very cute.
That's so great. That's so great.
Very cute. And there's an envelope, and it's from Dimitri, addressed to Vince Lucas, Leavenworth Prison, Kansas. Okay, so Vince is not in Joliet anymore. Vince is in Leavenworth.
At this point.
But, it works because both... actually, that line might have said Joliet was good, but it was no Leavenworth, implying that he has been at both.
Oh, no, that's what it meant. He's been like in every prison and he knows what like the nice one is. And
got it.
I think Leavenworth was the nicer one.
Got it. Okay. So
for most people,
in the time that
he's been around.
In the interim time, he was
everywhere.
at both Joliet and Leavenworth. And then off to the side, we see like new toothbrushes, a shower cap.
There's the complimentary shower cap.
Sheepskin.
And there's the sheepskin.
Or something that I assume is a sheepskin. And that, of course, are all the things that Larry or Dimitri the sheep is offering to Vince when he comes to stay with them. And then on the other side, we have I love this, the Thug Kitchen. Do you know about Thug Kitchen?
No, it's a cookbook. The Thug Kitchen.
Cool,
and there's a
that
vase
Dimitri
of flowers
Sheep
also.
is a fan of the Thug Kitchen cookbook. Thug Kitchen, check it out online. It's a hard book. They have a site as well. Really funny stuff. It's like colloquial thug language recipes, cooking recipes. But this, I imagine, is here because Dimitri with Balki was preparing dinner the night that Vince arrived.
You know what this reminds me of? Do you remember you bought me for my birthday one year?
Cooking with Coolio.
By Coolio. And I will tell you, this is the most hilarious cookbook. I have never read so many swear words in recipes ever. So funny. So
Thug Kitchen is a little bit like Cooking with Coolio, but it's like a whole brand. And it used to be online. Now there's, I guess there's a #1 New York Times bestseller.
Oh my God, it was, it says #1 bestseller.
And then we have flowers, and are the flowers just a nice touch, or is there
the flowers
some
is like, I have flowers here for you.
In the episode.
So in a comment to Cousin Pam, Dimitri Sheep kind of explains the Thug Kitchen cookbook. She says, this is famous Miposian cookbook for the nice families who have prisoners living with them. Our two arsonists' favorite dishes and then he's got some Miposian dishes here. Favorite dishes were solitary snout with saffron. That's really clever. Canteen goat spleen in a lemon turmeric reduction.
I love
of course.
that touch, lemon turmeric reduction.
And then commissary cardamom cow colon.
Love it.
Oh my God.
Love the alliteration.
Dimitri, those are 3 Miposian dishes that I don't think Balki cooks on the show, but should have.
But Dimitri Sheep so we know a little bit more about our friend Dimitri Sheep. He's a good cook and he enjoys cooking.
Well,
so once again, if you're a fan of the show, head on over to Dimitri Sheep, Dimitri Sheep, all one word, on Instagram, and give it a like and follow.
I mean, it is another universe in itself of this Perfect Strangers fandom universe. It's so much fun.
This site
much fun.
So much. And by the way, every so often there are non-episode related posts from Dimitri Sheep just showing us what
the sheep's doing.
What Dimitri's up to. Yeah. Check it out. It's a really fun site. I personally love it a lot. Very impressed. Very creative. Keep it coming, Dimitri. We love you.
And those other ones, you get to see Dimitri Sheep react to modern day problems and situations, which is also very fun. So check that out. Okay, ton of Balki-isms. We had that one. I know it's been a long trip down from up the river. A long trip up the river.
Cousin Larry's so excited the cat ate his tongue.
Now I understand what got your dandruff up instead of dander.
Which, I don't even get the dander up.
I know, dander.
Half of these sayings are like,
that's an old-timey, that's like an old-timey dander saying. Yeah.
Let me relieve you of your mind. Again, I believe this is relieve you of your burden, and he's saying Larry's mind is his burden. Vince just wants a new fleece on life. And Balki, of course, trusts him illicitly.
Illicitly, not implicitly.
And this really great line, if we both ended up dead, I'd have to live with it for the rest of my life. Classic.
That's great.
And cousin, I can read you like a scroll, which does actually, for once, make sense.
Don't be ridiculous. Not said this episode.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
Good thing we have that soundbite just to get our quota in. We have a couple other classic catchphrases that show up. Cousin, we really stepped in something good this time. This has been like a pretty constant.
2 in a row, 3 in a row.
No, it's like more than, it was like 3 or 4.
Every episode. Yeah, 3 or 4. Easy,
We have something we haven't heard for quite a while, but it's back. It's Opopo.
I missed the Opopos. Yeah, he hasn't said that.
And we
gotta
have
get out of the city.
Get out of the city.
And then Larry's just...
This is a new thing for Larry, but it was so funny. Well.
Just as scared, going, well. It's great. And then you get the first time you see Lydia and Harriet kind of bicker with each other. I think we will see that again often. You got Larry panicking, grabbing Balky by the shirt, and Balky laughs at his own joke.
Yes.
And he throws in one of those.
And now we're at the segment of our show that we call Perfect Strangers Today, or PS Today, in which we wonder if this story were happening today, how would the episode be different? Now let's talk about prison pen pals. Is this still a thing?
I think the program still exists.
On pen and paper and
it would have to be.
Post? Yeah, because prisoners don't have phones or internet.
Or computers.
Well, they might have email access because they go to they do online education and stuff. They get degrees and stuff.
Some of them might, but I still feel like correspondence with prisoners is still important and still used, to help them. I've
never done it, but things. I would.
I've never done it. I would too. I think it's fascinating. It would be fascinating.
All right, let's do that
until the guy gets out and comes and wants to stay with you. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it could still happen today where you testify against someone and then they come out of jail or prison and they come after you.
But they're rehabilitated and maybe you had a part in the rehabilitation and
that's right.
But I don't know. I couldn't think of anything else for PS Today. Largely, I think
really
a lot
the only thing
of it
we
would
can
be
wonder about is
would the DA really call you?
Yeah,
would the DA call you?
Get an email at best, but does that happen? I don't know.
Maybe an email.
I've never testified against a criminal, so
you'd get a letter 3 weeks after the guy's out, and it would be too late by then.
You'd be like, by the way,
by the way, this guy got out 3 weeks ago.
Or no, you would just have an alert on your Twitter or a Google alert, and the news would just let you know. You would just have it set up. Be like, if this guy's name ever comes up, let me know, and we know.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah. So yeah, not much. The only thing I wonder for PS Today is do people still let us know, listeners, if you've ever corresponded with a prisoner through a pen pal program or written letters, or let us know if that kind of thing is still going on and how that experience has been for you.
Even the camera bit, you still have mounted flashes on DSLR cameras that you have to use, and it would still go off. It would have still went off, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he could have snuck a photo with a timer or something instead, but he's just learning. He doesn't know. He's a budding hobbyist photographer.
And photographers still use that word shoot, right?
Yeah, you're shooting pictures. You can shoot. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's often funny because at work, sometimes I have to, we do events and I have to help the photographer and take pictures of kids. And I'll just be like, I'm going to go shoot the kids. I'll be right back. And that's just how you talk. Everyone knows what you say. Yeah, they're like, what? And yeah, we're going to shoot some kids. I'm going to go shoot some kids.
So the big question is do people still correspond with prisoners, and what form does that correspondence take? But I think pretty much the episode would stand today.
Yeah.
Everything in the episode is pretty evergreen, nothing super time sensitive, except for there's no prison in Joliet anymore.
No, you just replace it with another prison.
Yeah, that's right.
Finally, let's get to some shout outs, sister. We had a couple. I grabbed a couple. The thread for this episode was crazy. I didn't even know what comments to grab. I grabbed a couple.
It's a very healthy conversation among our listeners. All of our cousins in the Facebook group. In the group. So first we've of course, as we've said before, it's a very long conversation these days. So we just pick out a few comments here and there. First up is cousin Pam Hitchcock. She says, a snappy episode from start to finish. We learn a little about Mipos's criminal justice system, rehabilitation with the locals, catchphrases galore from everyone, funny Balkyisms. Plus, we finally get an I can read you that makes sense.
That one was the biggest relief for me. Okay, this is good. I don't have to stay up all night figuring this out. Cousin Evelyn says, the bit when they are sitting on the kitchen floor is one of my favorites of the entire series. The headbanging bit was not planned. There's an outtake floating around of Mark Lindbaker doing it to Bronson Pinchot mid-scene, and Bronson completely losing it with shock and laughter, followed by Marklin Baker totally losing it, and the two of them falling apart on the floor. That must be the
joy
YouTube
to watch. Yes,
the YouTube
it's on
blooper.
YouTube.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Just go and search for Perfect Strangers bloopers. It's in almost every one. We also have something from cousin Lauren Miller, who says, I find it interesting that Vince Lucas could get a photographer's assistant job so easily, yet Larry could hardly sell a photo. Very good point,
That's a good
Lauren.
point. Oh, my
Cousin
God,
Lauren.
Larry's a crap photographer.
And she writes, maybe Larry should have tried the assistant gig first. I love how the picture that Vince took was at least one of, if not the first color promo photo of the guys. It also happens to be the picture that Apple TV uses for their Perfect Strangers listing. Interesting.
That's fun. Yeah,
I don't watch Apple TV, so I wouldn't know that.
Yeah. Studio.
Going back to the previous note on Larry not being able to sell a photo, the other thing this comment made me realize is like Larry was so dead set on becoming a hotshot photographer in the early season. And then as soon as he got like some basement job at the Chronicle, he just gave up on that. He's not
wants to be a writer. No, he wants to be a writer now, I feel.
But
I don't know.
he just gave up on wanting to take photos altogether.
I wonder if that ever comes up again, him shooting a photo. We used it a bunch in the early seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cousin John, who always has very good observations and breakdowns of these episodes. He's really good. He says, while this is another example of Balki's naivete being supported at Larry's expense, it also has a decent underlying message. Having worked in social services for the past 10 years, many people who are released from incarceration are done so with little or no support. They have little money and often don't have any friends or family who can provide for them, even temporarily. Additionally, a criminal record can limit their hireability to few industries at entry-level positions. With few prospects and even less hope, they quote-unquote return to their ways and are often end up incarcerated again. Not all do, but the rate of recidivism in Colorado is 50% and even higher in some states. While I can't support or endorse the Miposian diet, I think there's something said for the Miposian reacclimation process. Well put, great information.
Very well put. And I might add, thank you for your work in social services for 10 years,
That is important.
John.
I mean, that's a good point, is like finding, like I was thinking he could use Indeed.com, Vince, to find a job. But the minute you check that,
easy, yeah.
The minute you check that box, I am a felon. It gets a lot harder. So they need a break, and it's
Very good
true.
Points by Cousin John.
So it is kind of like a statement on some social things,
on rehabilitation and second chances and helping. Yeah.
Good stuff. That's going to be it for this episode, listener. But stay subscribed because, Sophia, next week we are entering some possibly peak Perfect Strangers. Hopefully it has another peak later, but this may be the peak of the show already.
Next week is an episode that I would dare say is many, many people's favorite episode.
Yeah, this is number one,
of
easily.
Perfect Strangers of
easily
all
my
time.
favorite. It is the episode that
Certainly
when I found the show
favorite.
on Hulu, I watched this episode first, and I've watched it again a few times since then. And
it involves exploding pastries.
Oh, yes, that's always the best. They're so tasty when they explode. I can't wait.
Can't wait. Yeah, so that's coming up next week. Make sure you listen and join us for that adventure. In the meantime, please check out our website, danceofjoypod.com. That's where you can find all of the links to everywhere where you can listen to and like and subscribe to the show, all the podcast links. You can also find all of our socials on there. We're on the Facebooks, we're on the Twitters, we're on the Instas. Find us there. Follow us on the socials for extra content. And you can also get in touch with us in a variety of ways. You can email us at danceofjoypod@gmail.com or go to our website. There's a button on the bottom right of the main landing page. You can leave us a voice message and we will listen to it. We will love it. We will air it on the show, play it on the show, and shout you out. But the most important thing for you to do is what, Imran?
Always look both ways before crossing the street.
This is true. Be careful out on those streets, but also share this show with a friend. It's very important, very simple thing that you can do if you're enjoying us. Share the show with a friend. Share Perfect Strangers with a friend. Everyone Look, we are living in challenging times. Everyone deserves to have 22 minutes of joy every now and then.
Just share joy and happiness,
Share
really.
joy.
That's the
That's our
message.
message.
Any way you can, be nice to one another, and we'll catch you next time. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey.